I currently work in a role with North Queensland Primary Health Network around suicide prevention, mental health, alcohol and other drugs. A big focus of why I'm here today and what I've been advocating for and working towards for probably the last 10 years is suicide prevention, but coming to it from a perspective of bringing in that lived experience. Yeah, back to the point I said before around most suicides are preventable. For me personally, I suffered an accident when I was 19. I fell 3 stories down a stairwell, broke the entire right side of my body, was in a coma. I have no memory before life as 19, and part of the recovery phase of that, what was deemed to me to be recovery, it created a picture of my future world to be a place that where I am now at my age, I would be either in a nursing home or living with my mum because I didn't have the capacity to look after myself. I wouldn't have the capacity to get a job. And over time, that thought of that future, it just became terrifying and a future that I didn't want to be part of. And over time, it led to thoughts of suicide. And then over time, it just built up and I thought, I see no way out. Look, people around me knew that things weren't going well. They could see that I wasn't happy. They could see that I was kind of withdrawn and that, life was a little bit overwhelming. But I think if I cast a lens to most of society now and their views on people when they're going through hard times, that they want to say the right thing to make you feel better. And a lot of that, it did the opposite. I would hear the cliche things like, oh, you should be grateful you've got somewhere to live. You should be grateful that you've got food in the fridge. And it sort of did the opposite for me. It led me to a place where I was thinking, right, I don't really want the future that's painted towards me. And now I'm being ungrateful that I'm not happy because I've got a bed to sleep in and I've got food in the fridge. All I really wanted at the time, I think, would be someone just to be, life sucks right now, and we see that, and we're just there for you, versus, oh, you'll be right. Tomorrow will be a better day. You don't know what the future's going to hold. If I reflect on that time in my life, and even life now, there were things that were pretty characteristic that suicide was on my mind. There was a point not long before it happened that I became really happy and content with life. And for people, they're going, oh, great, look, he's happy, he's enjoying life now. But for me, that was because in my mind, the end was near. And that created a bit of peace for me, thinking I don't need to be around that much longer because this is where I'm going. And we do hear that a lot for people who are bereaved, they were just happy. And when you talk to people, other people who have lived experience of suicide, they'll often share similar to what I've just said, is that, I felt peace in those moments. And it's not that I wanted to die, and it's not that a lot of people want to die. It's that you just don't want to live because it's too scary, it's too painful. Distress and dark times look different for everyone. For me, it's pretty often centered around other people's opinions. If I can think of the times in my life, it's people's opinions or my interpretation of what people think about me that leads me to some times when I feel lost and I feel like I really am struggling. I've spent years on the phones at Lifeline, and I've learnt that distress looks different for everyone, and what seems insignificant for you could be the thing that could lead someone to actually wanting to end their life. And I would say the approach to that is compassionate curiosity is a key to connection with people. And for me, connection is probably the most beautiful thing that we experience as humans. And When you come from a place of not judging, but actually listening and understanding what it is about something that's leading someone to distress, like for your example, for the person with their letterbox, it's rather than just taking place of judgment, just listen and they'll tell you the answer. Well, first thing I'd say is good on them for trying to seek some support and not do it themselves. Men are so self-reliant that we want to try and do everything ourselves, and taking that first step to get some support is scary. Like, it's scary for anyone to do it, but when you think about the history of men and the Stoic men and the role of masculinity, and I think we're coming a long way. But I'd say that when you take that first step and you go and see someone, whether it's a clinical or a non-clinical approach, whether you're in front with a psychologist, that like life, you're not going to mold with everyone. And if it's not the right fit for you, don't give up. Try and see someone else. I look at the work that Are You OK Day has done, and some people see that quite tokenistic, but the messages that they have are really powerful, and it's around warning signs of what can go on in someone's life. The big thing with that is transition moments. So when people are transitioning between jobs, they've lost a job, they've lost a partner, like all the sorts of things, going from school to high school to university to unemployment to retiring, they're all big life moments. If you recognize that someone in your circle is going through one of those, give them a little bit of extra attention. If you notice that someone has withdrawn or really made a drastic change in their life, if they've always been sporty or they've always been out in connecting, playing golf, and all of a sudden they stop doing it, ask them a question, be compassionate, and don't just beat around the bush. It's very hard to ask the question if you're really concerned about someone, are you thinking about suicide? But that won't do anything to put it in their mind. It won't lead them to thinking about it. And in most cases, it'll actually unlock the key for them. If someone's actually been thinking about it and they've been sitting and you ask them direct enough, if they say yes to you, you've given that person a gift, because you've given an avenue to actually go, hey, I actually am thinking about suicide. And the next step with that is just listen. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to call an ambulance. You don't need to send them to hospital. Just sit and be there with them. Hear what's going on in their world. I've had, many close friends that have rung me, and they've had the plan, they've had the access to do it, and it's imminent. I've been thousands of kilometers away from them in these cases, and what I have done is just listened. I've cried with them. I've stayed on the phone for 3-4 hours, and we've just spoken. And it's all about just listening, giving them space, sitting there in silence, and allowing them that space to really uncover what's going on for them and what do we need to do to keep you safe now. And that can be a really, really long process, and it can be really uncomfortable and really scary. Sometimes we're all our own worst enemy and we put ourselves down so much, but sometimes that self-compassion is a really nice thing to open up the door to what can we do. So if you like to run, or you like hiking, or these are the things I like doing, like incorporate them in your life and treat them as a priority. Like, you need to make room for those things in your world, otherwise you're gonna overflow your cup and you're no good for anyone. Like, I love the analogy of, like, you've got a glass of water and it's always maybe 40% full, but you have a bad day, it's a little fuller, and then something else happens a little fuller. If you don't have outlets, it's going to get to the point where it's going to overflow. Or if you get to the pressure cooker analogy where things really just explode. And that's when we look at the things of where someone goes from 0 to suicide in the space of a day, that life has just been too overwhelming. But when you have healthy outlets, like for me, it looks like if I've got a day back-to-back meetings, I'll find 5 minutes where I'll either pull out my phone and play a game of chess, or I'll listen to a song, or I'll step outside for 2 minutes. Or if I'm in a place where life's not going so well and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I've got 4 people in my phone that I can call and just say, today's not a good day. And they won't ask me any more questions. They'll just listen and just go, what do you need? What do you need? What can I tell you? And I've also got 4 people in my phone that if I ever ended up in a place where I had thoughts of suicide, I could call them and say, hey, I'm thinking about suicide. And again, they just hold space with me. They're not going to judge me. They're just going to answer. It's about creating space. I am blessed to have many, many men who I connect with and without lived experience, and they'll talk to me about things, and it's that vulnerability piece. They know that I've been vulnerable enough to share things in my world. And if we go to places where they feel comfortable and you create an environment where they feel comfortable, they'll open up. They will. They're not locked up. And I think that there's many stories that I heard already through Spoke to a Bloke about going for a walk, an hour into a walk, blokes will just open and they won't shut up. And that's a beautiful thing. And again, it's not, they don't want anyone to fix anything. They just want people to hold space and create an environment that's comfortable for them to do that. I think it's about an initiative of honouring people where they're at and meeting them where they are, versus telling people to come over here and meet me in a clinical setting or meet me at a room. Meet them where they're at, and people will be far more comfortable to open up.